Is the concept of behavioral economics applicable to all industries?
Yes, the behavioral economics, as Dick Thaler, the founder, says, it's economics about real people. But I think that the ideas in it that are interesting that travel are the ideas of systematic bias, that the brain actually does things that are contrary to efficiency, that it doesn't make accurate probability judgments in uncertain situations, and this leads to mistakes in people's decisions and mistakes in markets' decisions. So any place has a market. It has application.
What other industries have the greatest inefficiencies that could be problematic or potentially catastrophic?
So the capital markets, as efficient as they seem, in some ways, they clearly have huge inefficiencies. They're unserved. I mean, the way capital is allocated is in some ways bizarre. And that's so important that even though it's probably more efficient than a lot of other markets, the inefficiencies there are of greater consequence. And I think the Moneyball story is actually indicative of a bigger issue with labor markets. I mean, I think that if baseball players can be misvalued, who can't be? And if that's so, then you start to think, well, middle-aged women in the workplace. You think about the biases that infect people's minds when they're making judgments about people, and how that might play out in the labor markets. And I think that's, I keep waiting for someone to say, there's a lot of people moneyballing this and moneyballing that, but it's just taking a general approach to labor markets and saying, where are people how are they systematically misvalued? Because they are. I mean, if you just know it. If these very highly paid, highly scrutinized people are misvalued, everybody is.
What's your definition of efficiency?
That's a really good question. I'd put it this way, that it's being in a state where you can improve it, where the allocation of resources can't be improved.
So, University of Chicago, that's where I went to MBA, their definition largely is information readily available to the market at the same time.
Right.
Not the outcome.
Right.
It can be mispriced.
Right.
But efficiency is defined by information. Do you agree with that?
No. I mean, a market look at the market for baseball players. The problem wasn't information. There was plenty of information available. The problem was what the market did with the information, what the mind does with the information. So that doesn't seem, I don't think that's an adequate or interesting definition.
Interesting.
I think you need to look at the outcomes. On the other hand, I'm not an academic economist. It's probably a useful thought for them. But when I look at a market and I see a market where there's plenty, the market for subprime mortgages, my God, obviously the information was there.
Rating agencies?
My God, yes. And the information is in the rating agencies. The information was available for a two-bit hedge fund manager in San Jose to figure out the whole market was screwed up. But the market did not behave efficiently with that information.
It was the processing of the information.
Yes, that was the problem. And the incentives to misprocess the information.
Mm-hmm.
Markets are not inefficient just because people are inadequate. Markets can be made efficient by just bad incentives being baked into them.
So when I look at your books, right, the difference between like Blindside and Moneyball and Flash Boys, what is the overriding theme or the underlying theme between all these books that connect them together?
I'll give you an answer that you won't expect, because I do think I get asked this a lot, and it wasn't until recently I came up with an answer that left me not staring at the ceiling at night thinking that was a stupid answer. I think all my books involve brave people. I think there's bravery at the heart of every one of them. Everybody is doing something that requires courage. And I think I'm attracted to that in characters. Now, sometimes they're disrupting markets. Sometimes they're starting new things. Sometimes they're teaching kids. They're doing. But I think it's true in every case. There's some nerve involved.
So you write about industries and the loss of trust. How do we regain trust in the markets?
It's a really good question, because what's that line? trust leaves on horseback and comes back on foot, that getting it back is so much harder than keeping it. So in the financial industry, it's been badly undermined, right? So getting it back is going to be hard. The answer is, however, the hopeful sign, Flash Boys is a very good example, is that if you are trustworthy, if you are actually aligning your interests with the interests of your clients, thinking about people other than yourself, doing your best just to be honest. It is amazing the power of that simple behavior. It gets sneered at by sophisticated Wall Street writers who will say, yeah, you know, be a nice guy, you never win, nice guys finish last. But I actually think that's wrong. I think it's important for people to understand that's wrong, that actually being trustworthy, and you know what it means, leads people to trust you. Now, there's probably a bit more hesitancy now for people to respond to the behavior in the financial sector than in some other sectors, but the Flash Boy stories show that if you build it, they will come. People are hungry for people they can trust.
Yeah. Last question. What do you attribute the Cubs' success this year to?
Moneyball. No, so, you know, what has happened is that the market for baseball players has gotten a lot more efficient in the last 10 years. There's still smart and dumb management, but the differences are not as great. To be both kind of cutting edge in understanding of strategies and players and to have a lot of money, that's the recipe for success. However, having said that, the way the baseball season is, baseball gods do not smile upon analytics. That it will get you through the season in a really nice way, but the minute you're in these playoffs, you're in a crapshoot. And so even if you're the best team, you're not necessarily going to win. So I wouldn't, even though they look like they're going to run the table, I would not bet on it.
Yeah. So let me ask you just a follow-up to that, just along the baseball theme. What happens to baseball, or I guess player, the amount of money they're paying these players, if everybody adopts the same exact system?
If everybody's making the same judgments of value,
Right? So
well
you're
then these huge imbalances between the teams become the defining feature. That the more money you have, the more likely you are to win, because nobody has any kind of edge. So it becomes more pressure to do things in baseball that have been done in football and basketball, where you have salary caps and revenue redistribution, so everybody's playing with the same amount of money. I mean, the reason that these huge imbalances have been allowed to exist in baseball for so long is, one, there's so much randomness in the game that it disguises the power of money a bit, and two, there were intellectual imbalances. And so the smart management could make up for the fact that it lacked resources. Once it becomes but you can just buy success, people lose interest. But the effect on the pay of the players, I don't know. I mean, what would happen is that there'd just be consensus around players.